Hey everybody, it's Big V Verl Worker. Today we're talking teams, and specifically today we're going to talk about how to hire and retain the best employees. How do you find and keep great talent? I think that's one of the greatest secrets, that if we can unlock and solve that for the rest of the world, we'll all be heroes. Finding and keeping great people is hard, but there is a process to make it a little bit easier, and if you follow the process, you can find and retain some better people. So we're going to focus on a few pieces, including retention. We're going to focus on keeping employees' goals. We're going to focus on team rewards, and we're going to focus on accountability. And I'm going to give you a step-by-step process in this video today on how to actually do that. Let's begin. You first have to establish who it is you want. One of the biggest challenge is doing what we call opportunity hires. So when you think about who I'm going to hire and why I need someone, usually it's because you've gotten to a place where you're good in your business, and now all of a sudden you're overwhelmed. You're starting to let things drop, or you're not following up with leads the way you should, or you're staying up really late at night working on administrative tasks or work. So you're finding yourself giving up the things that matter most with your family, your faith, your friends, your fun, or your fitness. Also, you can focus on your finances or working on your business. That concept of being overwhelmed and stressed is so common in entrepreneurs. That's when we have to do what I call is a missing persons report. Now, if you stay right to the very end of this video, I'm going to give you a copy of how to fill out a missing persons report, as well as our hiring process that we use at Workman Success. So let's begin by talking about the missing persons report. This is where we make a list of all of the things that you want to do before, during, and after having a client acquisition. And then who does those activities? So when I think about who's going to do those activities on my team, it usually falls to who? Yeah, well, you as the leader. If you check your name by everything, one of the things that I've learned to do to figure out how to determine who to hire next is I put $100 an hour next to those activities. And if you would not be willing to pay someone $100 an hour to do it, you shouldn't be doing it yourself. See, we can never take you as a coaching client to the place where you're making $100 or $200 or $500 or $1,000 an hour if you spend any part of your day doing activities that you can delegate for less than $100 an hour. So I want you to think about that. So the first thing you do is you make a list for a missing persons report. Who are we missing? What are the activities we would give them? And that begins to create what we call as a job description, or the activities you want someone to do. The next thing we do once we've created that job description and we've detailed out what they want them to do is now we have to hunt, we have to find, and we have to attract talent. I wish it was as simple as swiping right on a dating app where you had all these people to choose from and you can see whether or not they were attractive for the position that you were getting ready to hire. I think that's coming, but it's not quite here yet. We use companies like Indeed and WizeHire to place our ads. We use artificial intelligence as well as emotional intelligence to write those ads, and then we write ads with language that attract people that have the right behavioral style to be able to be successful in that role. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's kind of the concept. We use a process called the 3-touch recruiting system. We announce to the world that the team is hiring for a specific system. We also want the current team to know that we're hiring for a specific position, because oftentimes our best talent is found by people that already work with us or that interact with us, that know us, and they know what we're looking for and they know what it's like to work in this environment. I love hiring friends and family members of people that already work with us. It's kind of a weird concept. A lot of people don't like that, but I prefer it because that creates this family culture that we want to have in our office. Once we've used a 3-touch recruiting campaign or attraction campaign, which includes emails, calls, text messages, social media, we then create a follow-up system and we go after the specific talent that we're looking for, whether it's buyer's agents, listing partners, administrative support, client care coordinators, sales staff, or whatever. So step 3 in the attraction process is, I call it review and evaluate. In most of our online systems, and I'll use the example of WizeHire, we'll go into WizeHire, we have a criteria that we put in here. Now, WizeHire will give you a coach. So when you sign up for their service, which is relatively inexpensive, there's a few resources that are there, including an ad coach or a hiring coach. So they'll help you write your ad so you get the best responses. And then when it comes in, we put them into 3 columns. Someone who has 100% of everything that we asked for from a quality perspective, and you go through and you can quickly look at resumes of why they would be a great fit. And then we, depending on what's happening in the job market, we may ask them to jump through some hoops to make sure they actually have the skills for the position that we're hiring. The next thing we'll do is we'll do a phone interview where we'll pick up the phone. We've paid attention. So let me give you an example. When I'm looking at resumes and we're looking at WizeHire and we're looking at all of the different columns, so I've got, A, B's, and C's. I only call my A's first. I look at the A's, and if I'm hiring for support staff or administrative assistant, assistant, some of the things I look for is whether or not they have a well-written resume. Is there mistakes or grammar issues in there? Do they how to format it correctly so it looks really clear? And then we do really quick phone interviews. And on the phone interviews, I want to give them questions that throw them a little bit off guard, but see how fast they can talk on their feet. How do they sound on the phone? How they sound on the phone is so important because I want to make sure that my clients have a good experience when they talk to somebody. And if they don't have that good front office interaction, I want them to have this disposition that is comforting to somebody who picks up the phone, then they oftentimes don't get the face-to-face interview. One of the questions we'll ask is, why would you be great at this position? What is it about the position that interests you? What's the last book you've read? And what have you done to increase your skills in the role that you're in? So it tells us whether or not skills development has been important to them, what they like to read, and if they work on self-development. I also ask something like, what's your favorite restaurant? Kind of gives me an idea of whether or not they think through where it is they like to eat, or do they just pop by a Chick-fil-A or whatever is the easiest thing to pull into. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there might be other options. There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions. They're just questions to create interaction so that you can get to know somebody a little bit personally to see if it makes sense to bring them in for a face-to-face interview. They've already qualified as an A player, and once you've gone through that, what I found is less than about 50% of the people you talk to, you're interested in actually bringing in for an interview. So you get them on the phone, you ask them a few questions. Sometimes it's a Zoom interview. You can see how the interaction is. You can find out if they're a good cultural fit, and you bring them in for a face-to-face. Once you've decided you want to bring them in for a face-to-face interview, then we go through and we do what's called a behavioral style analysis. Some people use a DISC profile. There's strength finders, the Wilson learning system. There's a bunch of them. When you use a company like WizeHire, and I'll give you a link to the WizeHire program, but when you use a program like a WizeHire, they give you a DISC and motivators assessment as part of the subscription process. So the applicant can then go through and take a DISC motivators. What that does is it gives us the ability to see if their natural or adaptive behavioral style is well suited for the position that we're hiring for. And I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit later. Now we've done the DISC profile. We've looked at their motivators. We found that we've had a good conversation with them online. It's now time to invite them to come in for a face-to-face. We like people to go through a series of interviews before they actually get hired. I like to say we hire as a team and we fire as a team. So when we bring someone in and they've talked to multiple people on the team feels like they're a good cultural fit and they're involved in the hiring process. They want to be involved in helping that person be successful in their role. When you hire in a vacuum or you hire by yourself and the team's not involved, then the team doesn't have any motivation and they don't have any investment into that person's success. So think about hiring as a team. I actually don't get to interview people that will work directly for me until they've been through 2 or 3 interviews with other people on the team and they've gone through this entire process. Once they come in for the personal interview, we use a series of questions that establish credibility, to find out what their skills are, to understand who they are really as individuals. And then we validate the information we got from the DISC by asking questions about their attention to detail, or what is it that keeps them up at night, or what is their favorite thing to do outside of work. Keep in mind, you're looking for someone not just that has the skills, but that also is a core values fit and as a personality fit, and that will fit in with the team. We introduce a concept for our team members when we're hiring for a real estate team called the 10 things to be on my team, which is a very comprehensive list of 10 things that they're going to be required of them if they're going to join your real estate team. Matter of fact, would you like a copy of that? I'm going to give that to you as well. So stay tuned to the very end of the video. I'll give you a link and I'm going to give you the download of the 10 things to be on my team. I just want to give that to you. Don't be afraid to offer the position contingent on their ability to answer those right questions and to give them a little bit of time. One of the things I like to do with skilled positions is we say we'll do a 90-day hire, and they know that they have 90 days to fit into the role and make sure that they're a good fit before we move them into their actual compensation package. There's a variety of things you can do to make it work. The next thing, number 6, would be to make sure that you interview multiple people, especially salespeople. And I'm a salesperson. We are easy to sell because we like people and we believe that everybody wants to be great. And so people that interview really well don't necessarily always have the skills. That's why you have to have other people involved in the interview process so that you don't necessarily always believe into the hype. So interview multiple people, and you'll find that different people have different skills, different interaction, different cultural fit, and different values fits. And as you interview these multiple people, you're going to find someone that just clicks with you and you'll be able to bring them in and fit. So we bring more than one in. As a real estate team, or if you're hiring in your sales team, I've learned it's always better to hire more than one person. If I'm hiring and training salespeople, if I hire 3 or 4 at a time, it's the same amount of effort to train 3 or 4 of them as it is to train one. And you know that in sales, 2 or 3 are going to stick and not all all of them will. The next one is when I'm hiring a skilled position, like someone who is going to be the director of first impressions, I'll ask them to call back and leave a voicemail message or a video message as to why they'd be a good fit for the position. Number 8, I call this step 8.5, is after all of the questions you ask and following this interview process and the skills assessments and all the things I've talked about, there's this piece that called trust your gut. And that is that if you listen carefully to your gut, oftentimes that instinct or that inspiration, whatever you call that thing that you feel inside when something feels right or doesn't feel right, the more you listen to it, the stronger it gets. And I encourage you to trust your gut. When you're hiring someone who's going to be close to you, someone that's going to be a leadership position, and I encourage you to have a meal with that person, go visit them in their home, find out what their environment is like. We've had situations where we are hiring a high-level executive and we met them in their home. We found that the conflict in the home with the spouse was so strong that we knew that as good as they want to be at work, they weren't getting the support they needed at home, and it made it so it was difficult to bring that person into work. We do as much as we can to get to know people so that when we bring them into our family, we feel comfortable with theirs. And then the last is, once you've identified that you're going to hire someone, you've made them the offer, make sure that you set aside time to spend time to coach, develop, and bring them along. If you do that, your hiring process will be easier. The people you'll bring in will be great. Now, I want you to go down and go to the bottom right now. I'm going to give you the link, and you can download our checklist, our hiring checklist, what we use, 10 things to be on my team, and a link to WizeHire, which is one of our favorite job boards. Good luck with your next hire. It's time to grow your team.